This is our Colleague Connect, and we're recording. So welcome everybody to our Colleague Connect. This is for our district leaders and our state support team coaches. There's an hour of just checking in with one another, sharing with one another, asking questions, updates that we try to do regularly so that we're all staying in touch and staying connected too. So it's great to see all of you joining us today. So basically, these are really kind of consistent across the board. We want to network and we want to share different family engagement practices that you are at your regional level, how we're coaching at your district level, how you're supporting school teams, or also hearing about those practices that are really working in our schools with families. And then we just want to also be thinking about where are we in this, the education year, and what does that look like for having strong programs of practice for family engagement? What are the things we are doing this year to keep our system strong, to kind of keep family engagement moving forward? And then also we've got some resources and things for use in the next year. So we'll just get rolling here, and we're well. We've learned some new things. So Whitney's going to start us off with this one.
So Anne, you'll see this. So Anne is going to speak to us in a few moments about the professional development that she offered in her region, and it was so engaging and fun. And I was asking the facilitator some pointers. Like I noticed he uses these cool timers and embeds things. So I'm going to try it out today, and I'm happy to answer questions. If it works, I'm happy to answer your questions on like how I got around the YouTube ads and I don't know, this might be something you can do with your staff or whatever. But the first activity is we're going to use 3 or more emojis to describe the story of family engagement in your district. You can find some emojis on your keyboard and share those in the chat, and then we'll take some time to share. Got this fancy timer to get us going. Oh, I bet I'm not sharing sound, but you know what? We'll at least see the timer there. Okay, we'll wrap up in 15 seconds. If you haven't already, to put your story in the chat. I'm so curious about some of these.
I'm seeing emojis I didn't even know existed.
All right. Who would like to come off mute and share a little bit more of what these emojis mean?
I think we ought to like pass it around.
I can start us off.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm really curious about Rochelle's.
Me too.
I definitely need more information. I am just feeling very celebratory because so many schools I should say schools and districts in my region are just doing such a great job with family engagement. And one thing that I will share from a school, Madison Local Schools, Madison Comprehensive High School, has been working with Ed Capel, the Assistant Director of State Support Team 7, and myself on our Family Engagement Participatory Action Research Project. I talked some about it last year, where they were bringing in these key concepts, which included more positive and intentional communication, including parent assets and student voice. And they've taken it and run with it. And I just wanted to share this one quick story. They have had a senior who was not coming to school for months, and they started to do home visits as a targeted intervention for chronic absenteeism. And they ended up having a home visit in Wendy's, and the student started coming back, and she's back on track, and she's going to be able to graduate. But if they hadn't done that, she probably wouldn't have come back, and she would have had to drop out or do another year or something like that. But I'm just really excited about all the amazing family engagement work that Mansfield City does, and Trecca, Galleon City, and just all these other amazing schools. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks so much, Anne. Is there someone you want to pass it off to?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Rochelle. I've got to know.
No,
Gotta know
you're
what this
fine.
means.
Isn't it obvious to everyone? So I chose the rock because it started off a little rocky. Like, I was new this year, didn't really understand how family engagement was supposed to work, learning a lot, and we didn't have really any schools signed up. And so I just wasn't sure where it was going to go. But things started to get brighter as we had, our first school sign on, and they were just really enthusiastic about it. And then we had other schools join, and we've just been working with them, and it's been really great. So now it's smooth sailing.
That is so perfect. Thank
I
you so
thought
much for
maybe
sharing.
it was like an iceberg and the sun melted it, and so the boat didn't have to run into the iceberg. Like that's what I thought.
You're taking a Titanic, Anne. Who else would like to share?
Well,
Josh, yours looks interesting.
I was just going to
Oh
say,
yeah, and Barry.
I work with Rochelle. And so mine was, I put the people, because we've been kind of working together, and it's getting better with the thumbs up and then the happy face. So I'm just going to piggyback onto what Rochelle already said.
Awesome.
I can share. Um, for mine, I have the handshake because I think that all of our buildings are doing a much better job of connecting with our community and making connections for families. And then the second one was kind of um, happy hug because I've got a parent and liaison in every single building, and we're actually meeting together. We've done it twice now, so we'll have a third time, and I'm really excited about that momentum. And then my my thinking person is when you have a school that's in constant change mode and when to pull in the support. That's been a challenge. I want to make sure that there's a good plan in place, and I don't want to come in when they're still dealing with getting new staff, new principal, that type of thing. So I'll probably be heading in there next year a little more strong for support.
Wonderful.
It's so funny because Holly, sometimes when people talk, about, and I get this sort of worried feeling, but when you were talking, I thought it's going to be great. Holly's there. They have all these schools around them that are implementing, they're just in this culture, in this space where like, this is how we do this. And so I don't know, I had this feeling of like, yeah, it's going to be great in the fall. She's like finding the right time. So thank you.
I can go. I put the books because in a little bit I'll talk about a lot of books that were given to a lot of very happy children. And so that was super exciting. So that's my party. And then I'm a little confused why I can't keep some other schools rocking and rolling it as well as Wasion Primary currently is. But grateful for Wasion Primary.
Sandy, I'm really interested in your sign language and your people. Sandy, we don't hear you. You don't look like you're muted. Not sure. Maybe a different microphone is picking up.
To my earpods.
Yeah,
There
we hear you,
go.
but now we don't see you. Can I have one or the other? No, now we have both. Yay.
Okay, go try to turn these up because these weren't on. Okay, can you still hear me? Okay, I can't hear myself, so I like the sign language that says I love. So I love being able to bring together families, especially those families with special needs and school districts, to make positive change for all students.
I love that. I want to capture that little set of them and just use it like in my signature or other places. It's awesome. Krista Allison, yours is like very springy.
So yes, a couple of things with mine, because we just have districts that are kind of, doing their work and they're focused on doing their work and trying to find my emojis over here because they were like gobbled up here. So the sunflower piece just kind of represents the fact that people are really trying to work from within because their strength is kind of coming together. And if anybody knows, there's like a whole piece about sunflowers about coming together and then also looking up and getting your energy from the sun. And it's both biblical as well as you know, just coming together and team building. The happy face is that I'm happy that folks are still talking about family engagement because there are a lot of other things that are coming down the pike. But the fact that they know that family engagement is central and critical is exciting. And then the butterfly is just representing hope that in spite of everything and with new budgets happening, what we're seeing is that districts are also recognizing the connection with partnerships and why partners are important to really helping to do this work. I was just at a meeting yesterday and our local library is, as they work with our school districts, they're helping to expand some of the summer enrichment work that's happening. And how do they make that connection? So that was for me really a strong highlight because I know that that work's still happening. So thanks. I have to run and go get the door. I'll be right.
All right. Well, thank you for everybody who shared. That was super fun. Thanks, Whitney, for sharing, keeping us thinking, making it fun for us, right? I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right.
We're gonna have more fun because we're gonna have some spotlights from the field. We're gonna start with Anne and then we're gonna pass it over to Tammy. You all, I hope, know Anne and the wonderful work that she's doing. She's going to tell us a little bit more about that professional development that she hosted last week in her region. Anne, you should have controls to be able to share your screen. If
Perfect.
not, let me know.
Nope, I do. Thank you. All right. Can you all see my slides?
There it goes. It's loading. Yep, we got it.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much for letting me talk about the amazing professional development that we offered. For those of you, I think probably everybody knows me, but I'm Ann Ditlevson. I work for State Support Team 7 in Richland County. I get to do family engagement support, PBIS, Universal Design for Learning, and Charting the Life course. And I just wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about the professional development that we offered. On the 18th, so last week, SST7 provided a 3-hour-long professional development with Dr. Matt Bergman of Novak Education on universal design for family engagement. He split up each hour and focused on a different grade band. So the first hour was more focused for K through 5. The second hour was more focused 6 through 8, and then the last hour was more focused 9 through 12. And each session focused on partnering with families more authentically. The focus was more on specific to virtual learning because, and I'll get more into this, we partnered with Trekka Digital, which is an online school. So there isn't a lot out there on family engagement for virtual learning. And so this was a great opportunity for how can we be more specific and intentional with our family engagement in a virtual learning arena. There were several people that came from brick and mortar schools too. And based on the exit ticket survey responses, they were very happy. They felt like they learned a lot because the resources that were provided were fantastic for virtual schools, but they were fantastic for any settings, in my opinion. And I'll talk more about those resources later. I'll give you a whole bunch in chat. So I started working with Trekka Digital this school year. It's been an amazing opportunity. What a pleasure it's been to work with them. They had actually already completed their 1-year action plan. And one of their goals was to provide family engagement professional development, specifically more at the classroom level, and again, specific to virtual learning. And they wanted to have training on partnering with families to promote more positive student outcomes, providing two-way communication using various methods to reach the most families. So this was a really cool experience. This is the first time I've planned a professional development with so many partners, and I loved it. That's how I want to plan all professional developments, whether I'm doing it or I'm planning for another person to come in the future. But so there was SST7 staff, which included myself, Ed Capel, who is the assistant director here at State Support Team 7, and Stacy Hunsinger, who is the lead working with Trekka. And then we worked with Trekka Digital. It was really important to have their input because this was part of their 1-year action plan that they wanted that training. And so, you know, I didn't want to just plan the professional development for them. I wanted their voice to be and their partnership to be involved in the planning. So first, the SST7 staff that I just mentioned, we met with Trekka leaders, Stephanie Westendorf. She is Trekka's school improvement coordinator, and Angie Martin, she's the director at Trekka. We all met and we heard what they wanted, really got some specifics about what were some needs. We were able to provide some names of some presenters because they weren't really sure, you know, who could provide support for them. And they decided that Matt Bergman of Novak Education would really be the best fit for their criteria, especially considering how much work he does in the virtual arena. That was very attractive to them. So we met with Dr. Bergman. They were able to share what it was exactly that they wanted. And then Dr. Bergman and I continued the communication. He sent his first draft to all the partners that I just described for them to be able to provide feedback. And it was amazing because, you know, there were things that I saw and Ed saw, and things that Trekka saw that we were able to really provide that feedback. And one of those examples was Trekka gave a really great feedback piece on, you know, could we make this a little bit more specific to virtual school strategies? And he was awesome. He was like, oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. And he took that and he was able to make changes and make a really awesome professional development. It was so cool to see this PD come to fruition, and to see how all the voices were heard. And it was just, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to partner more with the people that are going to be attending these sessions, whether it's me that's doing it or somebody else. So that was really cool. Funding was awesome. This was part of the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center's ONPS. And then that grant money that was provided as a way to support TRECA, we were able to afford to pay Dr. Bergman to come for 3 hours. And again, it was virtual, via Zoom. We had 136 attendees sign the attendance link, but I think that there were actually more based on the numbers for each session. But sometimes people don't always fill out the attendance link, which I get. But yeah, without those funds, I don't think we would have been able to afford it. And I'm just so thankful, because I learned so much for myself from Dr. Bergman. So I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Boone and Whitney and the rest of the amazing Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center folks. I already really talked about this, but the main lesson that I learned is bringing your partners on board for planning is key. Hearing stakeholder partner voices is so important. Usually I take information from surveys and things that have been said in the past about what educators really want to guide my work. But this really opened my eyes to planning in a more authentic way. And I'm so thankful for that. Partnering with stakeholders is so critical. And because of that, I wasn't just guessing or assuming anything. The presenter himself was able to hear what it was that they wanted, and then be able to be provided feedback to give them exactly what they wanted. So that was amazing. And it was really shown in the exit ticket survey. There were almost all positive comments specific to the resources, which I'm going to share with you now. The resources were just huge. They were amazing. But he really was able to, I think he did a really good job of providing, I don't know, like in the resources, lots of different options for how to engage with families. But he was also sure to say, sometimes too many options is overwhelming. And he was able to show us some research about the best ways to reach out families based on age of students, based on gender, based on education level. It was fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and put some things in the chat. First thing I wanted to put in there is the presentation itself. And all of the resources are linked in here. But just a few resources that I wanted to talk about. This was awesome. I didn't even think to do this, but he shared a Google form questionnaire where families could share the best way that they prefer to be communicated with and best times of contact, which is huge. And he provided that. People can make a copy and change it, adapt it to however they needed it. He also provided, but this was really cool. I believe that this is AI, but Whitney and John, I know you guys were on that call, so correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a translator site where you can type in something in one language and it will automatically translate it for you. And I don't know how many languages it translates to, but it was a lot. And these are kind of just the more general resources. I thought this was great. A tech planner that families can do with their kids. I can get it. So there we go. They do have ages 2 through 8 plan, a 9 through 12 plan, and a 13+ plan. And the planners are in English and Spanish, and it's just promoting meaningful tech conversations with their children about safety, and kind of expectations and what are your, like, everybody gets to share their thoughts. And then more specific to K through 5, there was a voice board for kids. So you can either do your math homework or you can do your science homework, just giving lots of choices. That's a Google Doc, so you can make a copy of that and change it as you want. A visual schedule for more, this is for younger kids. But this was great. You could change the topics or change the order and change the images. So you can change a lot in this. And then I thought this was great. These are anger management cards. Help younger students to manage their anger through calming strategies. And then the 6 through 8, there's band, there's more visual schedules. And then again, all this, I know this is a lot. There's all this is embedded in that first link, the presentation. And I thought this was really cool. This was an AI, I believe, designed by teachers. You may or may not have heard of this. I had not heard of it, but it's called Colleague AI. And it's really specific for K through 12 educators, creating engaging lessons and providing better student learning. And then for 9 through 12, I thought this was so cool. I don't know if you guys have heard of Goblin tools, but I did want to share this with you real fast. So there's all sorts of things that you can do here. It can help you break things down. It's breaking things down so you don't, which I love. But one of the cool things on here, can you guys see my screen? Okay. This can actually help you to understand tone. So if somebody sends an email, and I played around with this, just making up like kind of ridiculous emails. But if someone emails you something and you're not really sure, are they upset or like what's the tone here? You can put the email in this box here, and then it will say, okay, it actually probably means that they're upset. It seems like it would be really important to communicate with them. And then it'll even suggest a response, which I thought was so cool. Sometimes I can misread tone. I'm really sensitive. And so sometimes I can misread tone. And so something like this could be really helpful as well. There's a ton more resources in the slides, but I didn't want to overwhelm you. I probably did already overwhelm you. I'm so sorry. I just got really excited. But the resources I think were just fantastic. I didn't realize how many resources were going to be in here. So yeah, that's just a little bit about the professional development. Are there any questions? Anything I can clarify?
And these are great resources.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing those. I was just looking at that one that choice board, the this or that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that as we are doing some work around our home visiting program, that is definitely something we're going to be sharing because I think that will also help in the conversations that schools are having with families. So thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Krista. I'll pass that along to Dr. Bergman. That's great. Great feedback. Anything else? And again, I apologize if I overwhelmed you with all the resources.
No,
But they are
And
in the slides.
and we absolutely enjoyed the day. And I think one of the real keys to success was separating the sessions for the 3 different grade bands, elementary, middle, and high school, because all the teachers felt so supported with that structure. And you focused just now on a lot of the resources, which I've heard a lot of great things about from our teachers too. For me, as a kind of looking at things from the district level or the school level, I had to go back to the presentation and kind of look at it again. But I noticed that there were several frameworks that Dr. Bergman included, including a really strong focus on UDL. And I am so intrigued and excited about how we can link that to what we're doing in our ATP. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, just for sake of time, I didn't go into that a great deal, but yes, like it was so, there was so much focus on universal design for learning and choices, but not too many choices, and meeting families where they're at. It was great. Like I wish we could have done a whole day. It was awesome. Yes, thank you, John, for that. I appreciate it. Whitney, you were there. Was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would also say I think it was really smart that you broke it into grade levels. And, a 3-hour PD feels long, but it went by so fast because it was specific to each group. And having all those resources gave people something to take right away. And also, as I've said before, like just so engaging and kept people's attention and responded in real time to the needs they were presenting. So well
Yeah,
done, Anne. It was great. I'll
absolutely.
make sure to send these follow-up resources with the group.
Perfect. Yeah, something else to add is my husband was on the call because he's an assistant principal in the region, and during the break between the first grade band, because my son's in kindergarten, between the first grade band and the second grade band PDs, my husband and I were texting about, I want to use this resource for Andy. That's my son's name. Oh, I want to use this resource for Andy. I think this would really help him. Or oh yeah, we should also do this resource. So it helped me personally too. It was great.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, we have handout on AI tools for families in communicating with schools, but gosh, there's so much more. And I wonder, I also was listening as a parent and jotting down notes,
Yeah,
um, expanding that library and sharing out with families directly.
yeah. And I think something else cool in the exit ticket survey was everybody had different favorite resources. And that was really cool to see that too. He gave us so many resources, but um, I think everybody was able to take a few resources and add those into their toolboxes.
Hmm.
Thanks for letting me share, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. We'll have another reflection, but before we do, Tammy, I want to pass it on to you so you can share some of the work that Wasion's doing, and we hope to have them in our network meeting in the future to share too.
Sorry, I lost my toolbar for a second. Where did it go? Good morning, everybody. And that was fabulous. I love all those resources and everything. So this is a little more informal, like literally at 9:45, I was throwing pictures on the slides because we kept going back and forth with Wasion, hoping that they would be able to be here themselves either now or in April. And they are busy, busy people. So we haven't heard back from them. So you may see this again, and it will be even more fabulous the first time, or than this time. But Wasion Primary School is a pre-K through 2 building. They are west of Toledo, kind of southwest of Toledo, and it very much is a farming community. And so they have 2 amazing, fabulous family engagement ladies, April Beck and Lisa Williams. And I mean, they have been doing family engagement long before I joined the charge with them. They came to me 3 years ago, I believe, and said, okay, so we want to do this, and 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 we want to do this. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of really good stuff. But I wonder if we could put this framework of an NPS around all that good stuff so that we are a little more focused and working toward their goals and their one plan. And so that's what they've done. I hadn't heard from them in a little while, reached back out to them, and they're like, oh yeah, our ATP is meeting every month. We've got new people that have come in. They've been fabulous. And they're just the definition of an independent school district, which was lovely, just lovely. So with this NNPS money, Barbara was very, very patient with me as we were trying to figure out a really good way to spend this money in a way that would benefit as many people as possible. And Wasion Primary gave us that opportunity. So they had planned already, before I even came on the scene, a literacy night based around this book called Utter Chaos. And because it's a farming community, it fit very well. And then just to make it even more sweet, Jeff Mazurowski is a local Wasion person who teaches in a neighboring school district in Delta. And then the illustrator, Keegan Clapp, is a 14-year-old who is from Wauseon. And so he's obviously very talented artist. And so they were able to feature and build a family literacy night around this book. And the author and the illustrator came and sat at a table for the whole evening. They also presented earlier during the day to the kids. And in fact, the illustrator, the young man here, is the illustrator. And he was able to use technology to start another drawing because they have a sequel to Utter Chaos coming out soon. But working with them, they were able to take the $14.99 price of the retail price of the book and bring it down to a cost price of $9 a book for us. And with that, we were able to use NNPS money to purchase 430 books. So every student at Wauseon Primary had a book by the next day. And they didn't have them at the event. Jeff had said, like, everybody keeps asking me to sign their book, but I keep telling them they're going to get a book tomorrow. And so they waited to hand out the books until the next day. They divvied them out by class. Dr. Boone provided 500 bookmarks. So every kiddo got a bookmark from the Statewide Family and Engagement Center. And they were so fun, so fun. And everyone was so very grateful. I actually was able to go. I went and hung out for about 45 minutes, got the tour. In addition to this table, they had a barnyard bingo game happening. Each hallway had decorated with pigs and the words that go with pigs, and then cows and words that go with cows. So there are lots of chances to read. Each hallway had a specific strategy, kind of a learning moment for families to come and learn about an evidence-based strategy to help their children with reading. And so there's a kindergarten, first grade, and a second grade option for all of those. They had a menu of, okay, at this time, kind of the centers, basically, like these presentations for the grade levels are being presented at these 2 times, but then in the middle, you get to go to these times. It was so fun. It was just so very fun. And the energy in the building was just so excited. And the whole staff was turned out, lots of cowboy hats, lots of flannel, lots of cowboy boots. We had a ball, absolutely had a ball. So again, 430 books all packaged and ready to go home with kiddos. And then these 2 ladies are amazing with the thank you notes and the appreciation that they show. We were originally shooting for 200 books to be able to provide them with about half of the books they needed. But some of my other districts that have technically signed up for NNPS haven't really moved forward quite yet. And so we're like, well, okay, I have a little money set aside for them just once they're ready to go. But they were super excited and so grateful that we were able to provide all the books. This is a cow that had been parked out in front of the pickup loop since the beginning of March. This event took place, I think, the 3rd Monday in March. This cow is so tall, it could not be pulled through town because it was going to hit the lights, the stoplights overhead. So they had to do a circuitous route around town to avoid. Apparently, this cow has a name, and I cannot remember the name. But she hangs out at the Fulton County Fair. So if you'd like to meet the cow, come on up to the Fulton County Fair. It's very fun. We went this summer. And so this was part of a thank you note that was sent from each class sent us a thank you note. And so yeah, before I came out, I'm like, oh, faces. So all the little smiley faces are on there to keep their privacy. But so the cow was, it's not Bessie. Oh, it's going to bother me. I'll think about it halfway through. The cow was sitting out to advertise the event. They had the sign behind the kids' heads there. And then everything was decorated throughout the building, just the fair and different cutouts. Some of the ATP family members had made the wooden cutouts so that the faces, were cut out so the kids could put their faces through and get their look like they were a cow or a pig or whatever the faceboard said. So it was a great night. It was so much work for everybody to put all of this together. Again, I don't feel like I'm doing it justice, but they worked really hard and it came out fabulously. So kind of another sidebar note is something else that they have started. So these ladies had a bunch of grants they wanted to apply for, and they couldn't apply directly as school personnel for these grants. So they started their own nonprofit. So that way they can funnel the grant money through their own nonprofit and give it to the schools. So where there's a will, there's a way. But with this grant money, they have started, they are the Indians. And so they started a future Little Indian project where they basically go and do home visits for kiddos that are birthed through pre-K, anybody that lives within their district. They bring them a little backpack. It's like this big, it's so cute, of supplies and information on, so at the fair that, or at the literacy night, they also had information on how to sign up for the Dolly Parton book, get a book every month kind of thing. So they bring them information about that. They bring them in developmental information, et cetera, et cetera. And they make that connection right from the get-go with these babies and families of preschoolers, toddlers, et cetera. So what a great way to be introduced to school and know that, school is on your side. These people are here to help you, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another really awesome thing that they are doing. So that's the end of my little show there. I can stop sharing. I see the chat going crazy. So many books. Yeah, there were so many books. Yeah, and the cow was enormous. I mean, it's so big. It's so big. It's like 2 stories high. It is, I don't know how they pull that around. Sterlina. Yes. Thank you, Meredith. Yes. Sterlina. That's why I couldn't remember the name. And yeah, thank you, Whitney, for putting the backpack program in there. Yeah, thank you, John. They have been just fabulous to work with. So that's where my party emoji comes in and all the books. They are just rocking and rolling it. And I love, it feels like Santa Claus when I can help them through the NNPS money. So I really appreciate Statewide Family Engagement Center and having those funds available to help them do some amazing things. We had even talked about, I said, okay, so if you've got families with more than one kiddo in a house, could we cut the number of books down and just do 1 book per household? And she's like, well, that doesn't really work because with divorces and remarriages and everything, it's just kind of complicated. I'm like, okay, never mind. So, but we were able to do all the books. So any questions I can answer? Thanks for all the nice comments in the chat.
Thank you for everything you're doing. It's really exciting to see. I know internally we've shared those videos and the pictures on the website. If you follow that link I put in, it's just so nice to see the pictures of what's happening. And it reminds me of our last Colleague Connect when we talked about the good to great practices and starting early. So really, thanks so much for sharing with us, Tammy.
You're welcome. Yeah, they did send a video clip that had a whole classroom of kids holding their books and saying thank you, but I couldn't figure out how to do the little faces on the video fast enough to be able to show it. So, and I don't want to have a have a problem with any of that. So
it's super exciting for me to think about. So we get this, Ohio, we got this statewide family engagement center grant, and we take a portion of that and we flow it out to you all. And I know it's, in the realm of your budgets and all of the things that you do, it's a drop in the bucket. Nonetheless, sometimes I think it's a great demonstration of, with engaging with families, really using it in a smart way that there aren't other resources for it that makes a big difference. And both of these examples, I think if I go back to Anne and this idea of building the capacity of educators in our region, giving them super practical strategies, things they can use tomorrow that are then going to impact families. So using it in that focused way. And I love, Anne, how you You identified a need. You started with we saw this, we talked with our partners, we identified this is an area of growth we need, and then you built from there. And that was really exciting to see that the impact of these sort of grant dollars just rippling out like that. And then Tammy, how you utilized them. And, it was a literacy night, but let's look at all the things that made that an exceptional literacy night. The link to learning, the local context. I think a different community in a different part of Ohio might have a very different theme and be celebrating something really different, but the points of pride that they pulled on for their community, and then the strategies, the grade level strategies that were shared, the excitement that was built around it, that families went home. It wasn't a t-shirt or a water bottle or some other, thing, right? They went home with materials that they could use at home. And so there's just so many ways that was right. And I do look forward to sharing more with folks about the outreach that they do to children who are still infants and their families, sort of developing that you're a reader, you're a learner, we can't wait for you to come. I mean, that sort of expectation as opposed to sometimes our waiting and waiting for families to register and then we engage. This idea of you're ours, we can't wait for, that sort of invitation is just amazing. So just beautiful examples, I think, of taking that little bit and doing something really impactful with it. And I know that each SST has different, are taking different approaches, and that is okay. Like, we trust you as partners to know the way that this is going to really help move things forward in your regions. And so that's exciting for us to see. So thank you all. Thanks so much for Anne and Tammy for taking the extra time to prepare.
Yeah, let's do one more. Thank you. Through this chat waterfall activity, just one word in the chat that came to mind from the spotlight examples. Don't hit send yet. We'll do a countdown, but just type in one word of what came to mind besides cow. Don't use that word. Okay, and 3, 2, 1, hit send. Thank you again, Tammy and Anne. I hope you see all those positive remarks, the ways that you've inspired a lot of creativity this morning. You've provided a lot of hope and aspirational, intentional goals, relevant to everyone's work. Thank you again. We're going to move along. We have about 10 minutes or so left, and we want to shift into your spring activities. So I'm going to hand it over to Barb.
Yeah, so here, boy, it's that time of year, and I know that we've been hearing, and listening to you about teams are meeting. That's great. They're looking at how did we do this year? How did that go? What can we do next year? Do we want to continue with the strategy that we have? Are we going to take it a different direction? And what's new and different? So I think that the things that we're coaching around, teams meeting this time of year. So it's not like a wrapping down, but it's like a gearing up for next year so that we are well prepared moving into the next year. So looking at data from this year, we have that spring survey that so many of you have completed, and we're really grateful for our SST coaches and our district leaders and team members who are completing the surveys. We just want to again encourage you, if you haven't already, to send us that information through the surveys. So you're writing plans for next year, getting team meetings on calendars for next year, making onboarding plans, knowing that there will be transitions of family members, team members, district, leadership, kind of making that plan for how we're going to bring people on board. And I think Holly's mentioned about, I've got this school, I'm working with them, I'm looking at next year, here's how things are going to work. That was, I think, just a great example of I've got this plan for next year, and reaching out for support, for sure. So as you all think about a coaching prompt, whether you're sitting in your district leadership seat or in a school leadership seat, what are some of those prompts? What are those things when you have that opportunity that you are prompting sort of this spring action, or in your coaching, how are you prompting sort of spring action with the district folks that you're working with? So feel free to sort of put those in the chat, or you can always raise your hand or unmute here. Let's share some of those coaching prompts so that we can hear from one another, maybe spur some ideas for each other.
I can go quickly. I
Yeah.
know I have at least two different districts, organizations that have expressed interest in doing the NNPS modules. Thank you for pushing the restructuring time until the end of June, so that way hopefully they can get them done in June. But I want to reach out to them here very soon and let them know that, and then see how I can help them keep moving things forward.
Great. Great. So yes, we're, as you all know, we wanted to have a little bit of time in the summer to sort of take them down, make some updates and changes based on the feedback that we've gotten from all of you. So they're open through end of June and then we'll reopen them in August. Yeah. Thanks, Tammy. So yes, great time of year for any of those districts they're looking at their one needs assessment, they're developing their one plans, and you're in those school improvement meetings or you're in meetings around special education and monitoring or early childhood or English language programs, or like whatever, space you happen to be in, PBIS meetings where that question of, well, what about our families comes along. This is that time, we hope, where you're one of those opportunities will be like it was with Wasion. We're doing all this stuff to come in and say, hey, let's bring some structure to that. Tammy, that was a great coaching illustration right there. So other things, folks want to unmute things that you're talking about with your schools, with your teams. John, thank you for sharing about yours. Are you ready to renew your commitment? Okay, so John, do you want to share with folks how your staff sort of commit to being on the team? Do you mind unmuting and sharing about that?
Well, it's we do ask for a year-long commitment from our faculty or staff members. We send out a Google form around this time of year. We talk about it during our meeting, and then we send out a form just really confirming. We invite everyone back. Jamie and I go out of our way to make sure we're really extending a warm, personal invitation to everyone to come back. And we ask them to formalize it through the form, but we use that form too to kind of keep seeding this idea of stepping up to some type of leadership role, because we really need event volunteers and goal chairs. We've had trouble filling those positions because I don't know what it is about our virtual world, but I think folks feel a really heavy responsibility to their primary role, and it's really challenging to move folks into that commitment to doing something that may be a greater time commitment or may raise their profile a little bit in the district. So it's challenging, but it's one of the ways we do it. And we've been also asking folks to recommend or talk up the experience in their other teams that they serve on. And we also do a short survey for us, just collecting feedback about the year, positive glows and grows, and kind of giving us a number rating about how the experience has been for that member. So that's also nice for marketing the team to new members.
I love that, John. And I think that really applies. I know while John's at Trekka, I think that would really apply in any setting, in any school, and recruiting for their action team, to be thinking about folks' participation in it next year, thinking about it now. And I love that sort of, how was the experience for you? What a great thing. I mean, I think all of us have been on teams and committees, and I just resigned from one I'd been on for a few years, and I realized I was starting to dread it. And I was starting to really process why, and anyway, and ended up shifting. And so I think we all have those experiences, and we want to keep things relevant and meaningful to people. So John, thank you so much for that example. We just got a few minutes, so oh, go ahead.
Well, what you just said about like going to meetings where they feel dreadful or not as meaningful, I want to skip ahead because we want to make this time with you meaningful and relevant. And so whether you put this in the chat now or you send us an email, we really want to hear from you the resources that you liked this year. We've offered the monthly colleague connects and the advanced learning sessions, and we've had the online modules that was new this year and updated our website. But maybe there's another wish you have for something that you wish existed. I've noticed in the past year, many of you are building PowerPoint templates and talking to stakeholders about family engagement. If that's, for example, a lift that we could offer and support you is, slide deck templates or more videos, or just tell us what you need so that we can make the time worth your efforts in being here. Tammy. I didn't mean to cut you off though, Barb, if you.
No, it's a good point. So you all know, yeah, so thanks, Tammy's listing some things here. So your feedback now is great as you're thinking and putting things in the chat. Also, we'll follow up with you. We don't have, colleague connects and 2 advanced learning sessions and the other things that we're doing with you. We can do things differently. We can learn and grow and improve as well. So we want to make sure that, we are supporting you well. And so we want you all to know that we need to learn from you. So keep translating resources, the family engagement rubrics for PBIS modules. All right. We love your honest feedback. Absolutely.
Yeah, we really do. We look at those surveys and sometimes we're like, oh, they're being too nice. Seriously, if you got an idea, if you have some feedback, just let us know. We're very open. I already gave the reminder here about those modules closing on May 1st. Make sure that folks register by May 1st, and we're going to have them closed for the month. So, Tammy, I'm excited that you have folks ready to do it. And you mentioned, Tammy, already about our attendance resources, and we're going to keep pushing them out there. We have a webinar coming up in May with Tom on how to engage families to support attendance. You can register now, and the last day to register is May 12th. From you all, I really would love your questions about attendance, maybe things that you hear in your region or your school. Tom and I are working to kind of make this a really unique and engaging webinar. So I've been looking at some resources from Novak Education, and I've been watching the Oprah podcast, and I know some cool times where they call in an audience member and an audience member asks a question. And so that's what we want to do for the webinar here. So if you have a question about attendance, or if there's a question you often hear, I would love if you would email or text me your question in a 30-second video message. I can give out my cell phone number if that's easier to do, or you can send me an email file, but just a short video of the questions you have on attendance so that we can maybe feature that in our webinar as examples for others to feel comfortable enough in asking their questions. Yeah, some excitement.
Yeah. So the Leadership Summit, our 6th annual, can you believe it, guys? 6th annual Family Engagement Leadership Summit, and we are going to make it 2 days. We used to cram 20, 25 sessions into one day, and so we're going to spread it out. And so there'll be more sort of options. There's still similar things. We're still going to be recording sessions and that kind of thing. We have our keynote speaker, Rebecca Winthrop, who wrote the Disengaged Teen. She'll be speaking about families and how they influence their child's engagement in their learning. And so as our schools then, in understanding what it is that families do, can then support families in that. So we're really excited about having engaging learning, engaging classrooms, and engaging and families understanding how they motivate that student engagement. So together we're supporting students. So really excited about this. This is coming. And so mark your calendars and please share.
I know we're at 11 o'clock. I just really want to quickly give a shout out to Meredith and Amy on our team. They're putting on this hands-on webinar designed to equip professionals to facilitate a science of reading workshop with families in their community. So make sure to register. That event is happening very soon on April 3rd. And they're going to provide lots of opportunities to collaborate and hear ideas and plan for their own events in their community. And the last announcement here is that there is a free professional development for schools that are working with students from Ukraine. There's no cost and they're self-paced courses. They must be complete by June 20th, and they become available on April 1st. So I will make sure to put in the chat the form to fill out if that's something that you're interested in or a school that you know might be interested in. It's from Immigrant Connections, so really great content.
We're really excited that Laura Gardner from Immigrant Connections, she's from Ohio and she moved back to Ohio. So she's here now. She used to be in Maryland, where she led programming for EL students and their families there. And so it's great to just have her be local and accessible and offering these great things. So we hope that you'll have schools that will want to take advantage of. If they're serving students from Ukraine, then they can participate in the whole thing. And they don't particularly, it doesn't have to be like in their classroom. Does their district serve these students? And then they can participate in participate. So boy, this has been full. And so I know some of you need to head out. Thanks for going, 10 to 11 all the way through with us. We look forward to hearing from you. Please stay in touch.